All right, good evening. Welcome. I am the community lead for Energize Framingham, and I'll be your moderator tonight. Tell you a little bit about Energize Framingham, a volunteer group that provides climate education, outreach, and advocacy. We have a free monthly newsletter covering climate and sustainability news in Framingham, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, join our Facebook group, and find future events and resources for personal climate actions at energizeframingham.org. I want to start out with a huge thank you to all the current city councilors and the candidates who joined us tonight. Thank you so much for your time. We're very excited to hear your thoughts on addressing climate change right here in Framingham. A very special thank you to Representative Sousa for joining us and providing comments in just a minute. A big thank you to First Parish for hosting us tonight, both here and online. Thank you to Access Framingham, who will be also sharing the Climate Forum with our wider community. And finally, thank you to the organizers of the forum, all the volunteers who provided the work it took to pull this together. The members of First Parish's Climate Action Team, our AV star, Tom Oswald, and many, many volunteers. Reverb. Hold it like this. Much better? Thank you. All right, on to the format for this evening. First off, the event is being recorded and will be available on Access Framingham and on YouTube following tonight. To start our evening, we're going to hear a welcome for Representative Priscilla Sousa. We're then going to hear from each candidate who will provide an introductory statement that addresses their climate priorities. Next, we will have a rapid-fire yes-no session in which all candidates answer 6 questions and then one final question from us, the organizers. Last but not least, we will have the candidate answer questions from the audience. If you are with us in person, please be sure to write down any questions on a 3x5 card. If you need a card, just raise your hand. And we have 2 volunteers in the back, Maria and Larry, that will be handing them out. We are going to hold those up. We are going to collect all questions by 8 p.m. So make sure to get your questions in early. If you are joining us online, please enter your questions into the comments. All right, let's get started with a big welcome to Representative Priscilla Sousa. She represents the 6th Middlesex District in the Massachusetts State Legislature. Thank you, Representative Sousa.
Thank you all. It's an honor to be here. It's a privilege, and I will keep my remarks short because we really came here to listen to our candidates and candidates future, some of which will be future city councilors who I will be working on as part of the state delegation. Oh, can you hear me now? All right, I'm sorry. But yes, as I mentioned, I'll keep my remarks brief because the real show is right behind me. For those of you who don't know me, I am the representative of the 6th Middlesex District. The way I explain that shorthand is it's all of South Framingham, or a majority of South Framingham, and then a piece of North Framingham, a portion of District 4 right before we get to the high school. So that's the part of Framingham that I represent. I am the only state representative in our delegation that only represents Framingham. So so I'm very happy to be here. And prior, in my previous life, before I was a legislator, I worked in the renewable energy industry. I worked in solar and on the consumer side, and it is incredibly important to me that we waste no time in transitioning to renewable energy, but we do it in an equitable way. We do it in a way that it's accessible to everybody. Unfortunately, over the past however long we've been moving towards renewable energy, it has been the renewable energy game has been deeply rooted in privilege. So it hasn't been equitable and accessible to everyone. And a lot of the legislation that we see today, I happen to be, as a legislator, on the Telecommunications, Utilities, and Energies, TUE committee. A lot of the legislation that I myself am focused on is what can we do to bring renewable energy, to bring accessible opportunities for sustainability to everybody and not just homeowners or anybody that has a certain degree of privilege, so that we can reach our climate goals a lot faster and in a way that's equitable. The portion of town that I represent has 3 environmental justice sites, so it's incredibly important to me. To have environmental justice as a priority, I have seen it firsthand. My other hat that I wear in this community is I sit on the Framingham School Committee. I'm the former chair and current vice chair. And during my time on the school committee and even before, we have seen firsthand the impacts of these environmental justice sites on our children's health, on our children's well-being, on our children's development, and on our children's academic success. So it is incredibly important as that we stay focused on that and understand that if some of our children are falling behind, all of our children are falling behind. So I appreciate, and I'll conclude by just sharing some of the legislation that, as requested, that has been, I think will be of particular interest to Framingham. So currently we have an act strengthening Massachusetts as a national leader of offshore wind. Unfortunately, there are only so many rooftops and canopies to provide solar energy, and we cannot keep up with the demand here in Massachusetts, especially here in Framingham, especially in densely populated areas like in my district. So so partnership with wind energy, which is something I've had to learn about, it will have a tremendous impact in our district, creating a climate bank in Massachusetts. Other states have figured it out. It's time for Massachusetts to follow suit and create a climate bank as well. I don't have the bill number here in front of me, but there's one bill of particular interest is addressing putting solar on disturbed land, making sure that we are not compromising open space in order to achieve our renewable energy goals. It's incredibly important that we do that, especially in an area like South Framingham where there's such limited access to open space as it is. So with that, and I'm always happy to chat renewable energy and sustainability with everybody. I'm always all ears. I won't be able to stay here for the entire program, but I'm easy to find, I promise you. I'll also conclude with a couple of our budget wins for environmental priorities over this last budget cycle. We were able to secure $21 million for Administration of Executive Office and Energy of Environmental Affairs, $10 million for climate adaptation preparedness, $8.8 million for environmental justice, and $52 million for the Department of Environmental Protection. Now it's, we've secured those funds. Now it's time to keep there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. And without further ado, let's start the, I was going to say debate, but it's not really debate.
Thank you, Representative Souza. You raised some excellent points on environmental justice and equity, and we'll get to those in the program. Before we start, I would like to state, just so you know who's here in front of you, all current City Council candidates were invited to participate. And for those that may have had a conflict, we provided an option to present a video for participation. We had 12 of 14 candidates confirmed. Both Councilor Christine Long, District 1, and Councilor Mike Cannon, District 4, both running uncontested, declined our invitation. Additionally, last-minute circumstances also prevented Councilor Janet Lee Bruno, one of our current at-large city councilors, from attending in person, but she was able to provide a video statement for us. Councilor Noah Alexander, running uncontested for District 5, had a last-minute family emergency that took him out of state. And we have one candidate, one counselor that's on her way. So right now, we have 10 in-person candidates here with us tonight, and one video participant. We are going to get to it. We now turn to each candidate's introductory statement. They will each have 90 seconds to make an introduction. We're going to proceed in order by district, followed alphabetically by last name. A reminder to the candidates, 90 seconds. The timer will provide a visual cue when 15 seconds remain. And at the end of your time, you'll see a stop sign, and I will order to allow everyone a chance to speak. Okay, a little background to the question. The Federal Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 provides generous funding to municipalities for renewable energy projects. Nearly any project constructed by a local government, like the City of Framingham, is eligible for an average of a 30% tax credit from the IRS. This includes solar facilities, small wind, energy storage, microgrids, geothermal, and EV charging stations in low-income areas. There are also numerous funding opportunities from the state, such as the Municipal Vulnerability Program, that provides funding to address climate resiliency. And we just heard from Representative Souza about all those wonderful funding coming to Framingham. So we asked the candidates this question. How do you propose using the unprecedented levels of federal and state funding for climate action in Framingham? What are your highest priority programs? And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to our first answer for the evening. I'm going to ask Councillor George King, who is one of our 2 current at-large city councilors running uncontested, to kick us off. So please, yes, to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And good evening. My name is George King. I am the at-large city councilor, one of the 2 at-large city councilors, and I have been for the last 6 years. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and participate and address the forum. I really find it to be, for me, a learning opportunity. There's all sorts of new things all the time in terms of renewable energy and climate change proposals that we as a city council have dealt with. The Inflation Reduction Act, as just described, is definitely an opportunity that hopefully we can utilize going forward as a municipality, and I would certainly be in favor of that. And one of my roles in the city council is I chair our finance subcommittee, which looks at all our budgets, and I scrutinize personally and hopefully collectively how we spend our money. And I think when you have opportunities for alternative funding streams such as the federal government, and you can leverage that money, especially in building projects, and we're hopefully looking to do some building projects now with a new elementary school at least, and other things. I think that's a great opportunity to put in place many of these ideas that people have and that sometimes are expensive, but certainly in the long run will be beneficial. So I would look forward to the opportunity to use that money to leverage it so we can have some real serious and successful climate initiatives here in Framingham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. All right, and now we turn to Sean Silk, running for District 2 seat.
Okay, I'm going to try this. Hi, everybody. I'm Sean Silk. I'm running for District 2 City Council, and I'm here tonight to tell you that my intention is to really represent you and to bring all of your concerns and needs, into the to public view for consideration. So in that way, my answer to the question is really going to be, I want to really see a little bit of progress on all the issues that you care about. I have particular love for trails and open space, so I really do love those, but I also want to see us update our grid and update the just number of electric charging stations that we have throughout the city. So every issue that you've brought up to my attention through the questions, I do support them. The question, I guess, for me is just how can we get this done? And I'm really looking forward to working with you to figure out the best way of how to accomplish these goals. And I think that's, where we're going to have a good discussion, is just not if it's worth doing, but how we can actually achieve these. So thank you.
Thank you. And we turn it now over to Brendan Ward, running also for the District 2 seat.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to introduce myself and talk about an issue that I care a lot about. I'm running for District 2 City Council as well, and I care a lot about Framingham and making this the most desirable, best place to live. It's why I moved back here with my wife to raise my family here. And climate change, sustainability is an existential crisis, not only for this community, but for this state and for our world. And so it's imperative that Framingham, that our community, our government, is a part of the solution, not the problem. And so It's important that we're on the cutting edge of many of these ideas and technologies. For me, that's specifically transportation and then built infrastructure, which are the two largest producers of greenhouse gas emissions. I would love to see us build more EV charging stations. I would love us to see better emission standards on our buildings. There's lots of other projects that I'm really excited about, whether it's composting, supporting our trails, supporting geothermal projects, all projects that I think are really exciting and that we should do more of. So long story short, I'm really excited to be in this position and hopefully champion some of these efforts. And there's lots of great opportunity to use state and federal funds to do that right now, because I think everyone is realizing the imperative of acting now, not later. So thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Steiner, please. Running for the uncontested District 3 seat.
Thank you. I'm Adam Steiner. I represent District 3, and thank you for having this forum. I can't really think of a more critical issue for us to be confronting. And Brandon's right, it's existential, but it's also every day in front of us. You only have to open the newspaper to see the impact of the climate crisis on people's daily lives. When I think about what we could be doing in Massachusetts and here in Framingham, I think about three areas. Transportation is a big one, trash, and the third is around building and construction. And honestly, I think Massachusetts could be doing much more. Around transportation, I'm glad that we're going to be electrifying the ride buses, but we should be electrifying the commuter rail. And we need to make the commuter rail a real alternative to driving into Boston. It looks and acts the same way as it did 30 years ago, and that's ridiculous. We need to do better with that. Our trail system, I'm so excited about the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail as an alternative to Edgell Road, which only gets worse and worse. We need to make that a really active part of our transportation network, though, and do more with it. You know, on the Cochituate Rail Trail, you know, the Natick side, you see a little more in terms of signage and sponsorship, and we could be doing that and more in Framingham. We could have, you know, electric bike sharing. We have an amazing electric bike manufacturer right in Framingham. Why not, you know, use them on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail? On trash, you know, and it's not a party issue. The state is like Democrat, Democrat, Democrat. You know, why are we not taking action on black plastic, on styrofoam? We need to be doing more around trash. Composting, I'm excited that we're forming a composting task force, but we shouldn't even need to do that. Like, we should be investing in composting. If people are not composting at home, they should definitely be using black earth compost, and we should incentivize that. And then around building, you know, we're gonna talk about the specialized stretch code. I think that ought to be the law of the land, period. But we can do our part in Framingham by incentivizing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steiner. We now turn to Councillor Phil Ottaviani, running for the uncontested District 6 seat.
Thank you for having us this evening. And you see I'm limping a little bit. I'm having a new hip put in a week, so I might be answering most of the questions from the chair. But I'm going to give you a little bit of introduction on myself and then tell you where I stand on the issues. I've had the privilege of representing District 6 for the past 4 years, and the last 2 years as your City Council Chairman. I'm committed to your efforts and our efforts. We have a tremendous and a huge opportunity in Framingham. We talked about the Inflation Reduction Act, but we have these opera funds, okay? There's $16 million in opera funds. The feds, they're giving money away. We just bought the community center, the old Marion High School, near and dear to me. I graduated there in '81. We need to make that community center, you know, accessible for all. You know, solar, explore all the options we can possibly explore. It's not even ADA accessible. The same potholes are the same potholes that were there in '81 when I graduated. It's a good thing because, you know, a few other folks in town, they wanted to put another 300 apartments there. So this is the best thing that could happen to Framingham. The last thing we need is more apartments in downtown Framingham. Libraries, solar, charging stations. You go around all these other communities, they have them. We don't even have them in the municipal in the parking lot of the Memorial Building. We talk about it all the time. It's time to act. We bought 188 Concord Street. City should have bought it when it was a town 20 plus years ago. A lot of reasons why they didn't. We bought it now. It's 16,000 square feet. They put a handicap ramp in. We need to explore solar on those roofs. We're doing a good job, but we can do a lot better job. It's just action. We need to act. And you know what? I've got a daughter that's 18 years old. We need to make the environment better for everybody. There are some challenges, and you'll hear some of our answers later, but we have an affordability problem in Framingham. We have lots of problems that we need to address. And the past 2 years, working with the mayor, working with his administration, we've done a great job, I believe, as a city council, representing all of you. And we're easy to reach, accessible, feel free. I want to hear your thoughts, concerns, and call me with whatever I can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ottaviani. And now we're going to hear from Councilor Liam Malak, running uncontested for District 7 seat.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. So when it comes to the Inflation Reduction Act and funding climate action in Framingham, the city recently got 2 MVP grants from the state, Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness grants. The first was for the Walnut Street flooding. We're building a boardwalk there. So that grant was over $1 million that we just received from the state. And then the second one was for the purchase of the property down in the southeastern corner, Guild Road or Guild Road. I don't totally know how it's pronounced. I've heard both. But purchasing that property, which allows for some watershed runoff and also connection to another 200 acres, I think, of open space in Sherburne and Ashland. So we are working towards things. In terms of the Inflation Reduction Act specifically, I know that the city was looking at one grant that looked at bisecting communities that historically was looking at how highways bisected communities and devastated inner communities. And here in Framingham, we were looking at it in terms of the train and the way that the train station bisected Framingham and that train line. And the city decided not to apply for that grant in this funding cycle, which I do think is a shame. So hopefully next year that might be something that we would go after. And in looking at that grant, bisecting the community, I was most hopeful that we would be looking at a trail network in terms of connecting the Chris Walsh Trail over the train tracks. So very excited about the trail initiatives that are happening here in Framingham.
Thank you, Councilor Malak. All right, and now to candidate Leslie White Harvey, running for District 8 seat.
Hi everyone, my name is Leslie White Harvey and I live in District 8. I've lived in Framingham for 14 years and raised my daughters here. I'm looking to be the fresh but not new to advocacy voice for District 8. I've done a lot in Framingham. Right now I'm the Downtown Framingham president on the board. I'm also on the library trustee board where I'm the vice chair of the library board, and you can always check my website out for more information. Also here learning a lot about the climate crisis. But one of the main things I want to talk about is the climate crisis is impacting the daily lives of the people, especially the lives of the people downtown and in District 8. A lot of climate action is needed right now. One of the main things I'd like to talk about is transportation. I think the MWRTA is doing a great job. They're very robust, but I think we need to really expand the MWRTA in terms of distance, and transportation is taking a lot of time for people to get to locations. So if we can do a better job of that, that'd be great, and we'll have less cars on the road. Also, to clean up the contamination site in Farm Pond, there's a dump where the people dump a lot of leaves, so we'd like to see that taken care of. Farm Pond is now part of our district. And also to create an urban forest, because downtown is really hot and very dry, and it's really impacting the quality of life of our residents. So these are some of the things I'd like to see happen. I know we have a sustainability coordinator, Sean Lutz, who's doing a fantastic job. DPW is also doing some recycling. So if we can just work together, and also you guys are doing a great job to just exposing us more to helping the climate. So thank you.
Thank you. And now to Councilor John Stefanini, running for the contested District 8 seat.
Thank you and good evening for putting this forum together. My name is John Stefanini. I've had my wife and I live and practice a sustainable life and try to practice what we preach. I've spent 30 years personally, professionally, and as an elected official on and off advocating for sustainable policies. we're not doing enough. I think that's pretty obvious to all of us. I think all of us think we're not doing enough. So why aren't we doing more? We've got to start with a strategic plan. We set up a sustainability committee, and I was happy to have authored the first version of that. But we need to implement it. We need to have a strategic plan like Greenfield, like Arlington, like Cambridge, that lays out all the issues you've heard from various people and puts it into a plan that can get done. The funds you're talking about on the federal and state level are plentiful, and we should be looking at how we leverage those. The private funds require private investment. The previous administration in Framingham deauthorized 2 solar arrays that are now being developed for other purposes. We should be looking at that as part of our municipal aggregation, which I support and think is part of that, where we can use local private dollars as a way to leverage that. We should also be doing electrification of our commuter rail, our fleet, not just the MWRTA. We should be putting charging stations everywhere so that it becomes easy and accessible for us to use electric vehicles. We should be dealing with our contaminated sites today, now. Mary Dennison, 350 Irving, Cedar Swamp. We should be recapping the landfill and taking advantage of those resources. There's so much. This topic needs more attention and focus, and I'll focus my energy, if elected, doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stefanini. Now we'll hear from Councillor Tracy Bryant, running for contested District 9 seat.
Do I actually need the microphone? Yeah. Okay. So they've said my name already, and so let me just start by saying that something this organization put in the literature saying that it's a global problem, but we have to act locally. I firmly believe that is just the mantra, but I also believe that we have to link the local to the global also, right? And most of the people in this room are involved on both levels, but we need more education and more action in Framingham. Though Framingham is on the geothermal project, so that's good, but we need to keep advocating and pushing and pushing. I've always advocated for the solar panels. Fuller Middle School, when it was we fought to get it rebuilt, right? I couldn't believe the design didn't ensure that we would have solar panels for the roof also. And so I kept pushing and saying, you're gonna do it, right? You're gonna do it. And then when the final design came, it only had the canopy for the parking. And so I had to use these organizations to threaten them to make sure that the roof was, solar panel also. And I think that sometimes we have to do that. The rail trails are great. We're doing a lot, but as everyone has said, it is not enough. Mary Dennison, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that I do and other people do. I made sure that a person, Judy Grove, who, this is her area that she loves, but she was thinking of going on to the Parks and Rec position. It took a lot, but I convinced her, no, we need you on the CPA, right, on the CPA. Mary Dennison was at a standstill behind the scenes. I had to keep talking to the department, Department of Environmental, that department, and then I finally got things moving and called the mayor.
Thank you, Councilor
Bryant.
Bryant.
I'm sorry for going on, but it's a subject that we love.
Thank you. And now we're going to hear from candidate Jose Ferreira, running for the contested District 9 seat.
Good evening. I was hoping it was a yes or no question, but it's not going to happen. My name is Jose Ferreira. I'm also running for District 9. There's not much I can add to what everyone else said, but I'll speak as a resident and not as a candidate and say, 4 maybe out of 5 houses in the south side of Framingham are 2-family homes. Solar panels are so indispensable right now. We have to try to take advantage of what the government has given us. I see a lot of buildings going up, and less places for kids to play, less green spots for people to hang out, like I would say. And as a resident and as a homeowner, as a business owner, our cities are getting too crowded. So it's not just, the building, the grants that we get, and we're not taking advantage. Framingham has fallen behind on all the towns around us all of them. You can go to Natick, Wayland, Needham, any town. Every building in town has solar panels. Why are we falling behind? What needs to be done to get this done? Because in reality, we're not working for us today. We're working for our kids in the future. We want to make sure that our kids, our grandkids, have a place to live 30, 40, 50 years from now. And of course, as a new person in this kind of business, I just want to make sure to let you know that I'm not the most prepared person to speak about the subject, but I have to learn as I go. I'm going to learn from them, from those that have been here before me. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we're going to hear the introductory statement by video from Councilor Janet Liam-Bruno, one of our 2 at-large city councilors running uncontested. It'll be on the screen over here to your right.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Janet Liam-Bruno, and I'm one of the city councilors at large running for re-election. I was first elected in 2019. I'm the vice chair of the council. I serve on the Appointments and Planning and Zoning Subcommittee, and I'm also the chair of the Environmental and Sustainability Subcommittee. I apologize for not being able to be there tonight in person, but I did want to thank Energize Framingham and the sustainability folks for putting this very important forum together. So to the first question about the IRA Act, the Inflation Reduction Act, which is about $500 billion in new spending and tax breaks that is intended to boost clean energy and reduce healthcare costs and eventually increase tax revenues. I think it's great. I would like to see some of my priorities. I'd love to see the geothermal expanded. And I would also like to see some solar on the roofs and some of the town-owned buildings. So those are kind of my priorities for that.
Excellent. All right, another round of applause for our candidates. All right. Thank you. Folks in the audience, remember to put your questions on the index cards and pass them in. We are now going to turn to 6 relatively quick questions for the candidates. These questions were provided to the candidates in advance. For each one, I will read a background statement, then pose a question. The candidates will then hold up a sign with yes or no on their sign to provide their answer. Anyone want to demonstrate? Thank you. Okay, footnotes, yeah. So the yes or no answer is going to take us quickly through these questions, but each candidate does have the opportunity to elaborate on their response to a few of these questions in 20 to 30 seconds. So I will ask you to, if you wish to respond to that question, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. You'll have a microphone brought to you, and you can state your concern. Councilor Liam-Bruno was unable to join us tonight. As you saw, she did provide answers to the 6 questions in advance. When her answer was no, I will state the concern she noted as she approved. Once more to the candidates, please limit yourself to responding to a subset of questions that are most important to you and that you can address in 20 seconds. Thank you. Okay, the first question. One previous barrier to installing solar panels on schools is that only private companies could use the tax credits. The Inflation Reduction Act has now enabled municipalities to take tax credits for solar installations. Our question to the candidates is, will you support an ordinance requiring the city to install solar panels at school and municipal facilities and parking lots at suitable locations? All right. Is there a candidate that wishes to speak to this? I see. Yeah, come on up, Brian.
So first, I'll just say that there's a perverse incentive to say no so that I can speak more. But What I will say is that on new construction, new buildings, I think that is a great idea. For existing buildings, I would want to know a little bit more about what does it mean to require, because I think there needs to be some flexibility, there needs to be some common sense solutions, but I would love to see solar on as many buildings and city-owned facilities as possible.
Thank you. And we'll pass the mic to Councilor Bryant.
Hi, I'll just say quickly that the time is now and that we have to get solar panels on as many buildings as possible. Even when I was on the school committee, they should be ready for, as they replace roofs, to retrofit them solar panel, be working on that, okay? Because, you know, we were pushing for it then. So the time to act is now. 2050 is really kind of late. You know, all the plans to end by 2050 to catch up. We really need to catch up by 2030 at the very least.
Thank you. Excellent. All right, on to the next question. Framingham has proposed to build a new elementary school for the south side and to remodel Hemingway Elementary School. Many school buildings in Massachusetts are being built to be fossil fuel free and net zero. Our question to the candidates is, do you support pursuing net zero and fossil fuel free standards for new and modified school and city facilities? Excellent. Wow, all yeses. Yay. Is there anyone that wishes to elaborate upon this question? Yes, please.
I just want to say, you know, a school in the south side of Framingham will help so much with traffic, will help so much with a lot of parents that have to wait 45 minutes to an hour and a corner waiting for their kids, because a lot of these kids are in the north side of Framingham, and it's going to alleviate a lot the traffic that we have to go through on a regular basis. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you. As a parent who actually was the sign coordinator for District 8 for building our new Fuller Middle School, I'd like to say I'd love to see a Southside school as well. My children have aged out of this, but I've had the opportunity to support this, so I'd like to go forward and support the Southside school as well.
thank you. Anyone else? All right, quickly, Councilor Liam Bruno's answer was, said that we are heading in this direction, that saying all net zero, I don't know if we can commit it to this at this point. I do think that is the goal. So that was her response. Okay, on to question 3. All landfills in Massachusetts are projected to be full within a few years, driving the costs of trash disposal up. More than 20 municipalities offer some support for residential curbside composting programs, which reduces methane gas emissions from landfills. Mayor Sisitsky has just created a composting task force to evaluate food composting options for residents. Our question to candidates is, do you support the city financially supporting residential curbside composting? All right, another unanimous answer. Fantastic. Is there, I see Councilor Bryant and then Councilor Ottaviani. And
I will just say that it says we all can say yes, and there is a task force, but we need to have some deadlines, some time frames for when they're going to come forward with something. I mean, I don't think we mean in 5-10 years, right? And I do want to point out there are challenges. I was like, well, how much will it cost, and you know, that kind of thing. But we can't afford to not pay for it. We just have to find the way to do it. If we're looking, if we say yes and we look in that direction, then we will seek the necessary solutions. There's a way to do it, and we need to do it. But I also need to have people on the task force that can speak to about apartments also being able to compost.
I was going to say what Tracy said, so I'll pass, and I concur in her remarks.
thank you.
All right. As chair of the council, this was important to the council, as you saw. All the sitting city councils that are here today supported this, and that's the difference. And I know people don't like to hear it. With the administration that's in place, we have an incredible working relationship with the mayor and his team. And this is a team effort. It's all about team, not one individual. And that's why stuff is getting done. So, thank you.
So I'm honored to sit and be designated as a representative on the mayor's, what I'm calling the Food Scrap Collection Task Force, which may or may not take the food scraps to be composted, and I'm happy to talk about that offline with anybody. But I do not, at this point in time, support the municipality collecting food scraps. I do not believe that the city right now has the capability to be doing the one, collecting the food scraps and processing them ourselves. I don't think that right now that's what makes sense for Framingham.
Excellent. All right. Question 4. Framingham Public Schools comprise the largest portion of the city budget. Our schools have incredible potential to educate our children about climate change and inspire them with clean energy projects while reducing their own carbon footprint. However, we cannot ask our amazing teachers, aides, and administrators to add to their responsibilities. Our question to the candidates is, would you approve creating a school district sustainability position to support educating our students about climate change while implementing sustainability projects? Excellent. And who would like to speak to that? Bunch. I see Sean, then Brandon, and then George, and then Tracy. Last question, Tracy? Last one you're going to address? Okay. Lorraine, can you give him the mic? Lorraine's going to give you the mic. Charlie, mic.
Thank you very much. Hi. Thank you. One of the things that I want to see the city do is start to consolidate positions into more of a government side, because I feel like the city can reach out to all residents and not just the family of the school members. The schools, I feel, have a lot on their plate already. They're working on transportation issues and education issues. So I really like to see this position on the city side, and I think Sean Luz is doing a great job. I'd like to see him, get another person and be able to not only support this initiative, but other initiatives as well. I think your tax dollars are better spent that way. Thank you.
So I would just say that I think the school department, the school committee has actually done a good job of putting forth a position of what a sustainable school system would look like. The devil's in the details and in the implementation, and that hasn't been as quick as we'd like to see. The Fuller project is one example where we're still waiting for those solar panels to go online. Brophy is the only other school that we see that. I'm excited to see that next month they're voting on solar panels for Farley, but school buildings are a really low-hanging fruit for us to get more solar in the city.
Thank you. And to Councilor King?
I generally agree with those statements. I think it's very important to do this and incorporate. I'm not completely convinced that talking is about as close as I can without out or something, or is it? Anyway, can I start my 20s? Causing all sorts of problems here. Sorry about that. Anyways, I think the school department should definitely have this in the curriculum. I believe it is. I believe it's an important thing. As a former educator, I worked in the school district 20 years ago where we started doing these types of things successfully throughout our curriculum, had our buildings and grounds people. We have some really good programs in place. I'm sure the school department can do that, but I agree with what Sean said. I think if we're going to start dedicating positions, it should be in one central location so we have a unified approach as a city as we go forward.
Thank you. Can you come up? Sorry.
Okay, I was confused. I said, are they saying that you want the city to pay for this, that position, or the school committee?
The question is, would you approve creating a school district sustainability position?
Right, but we don't have the purview. The school committee would do that, right? for the schools. So that's their purview. But I would support them doing it if they want to. But I think that they have a budget that can sustain that if they want. But also, however they do it, they already do sustainability projects and whatnot. But we need to have a sustainability curriculum. Sustainability needs to drive every subject. People learn better when they have something to practically apply it to. So sustainability needs to be central in the curriculum, but they can do that, and if they need to bring in outside people, they can.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Question 5. I have to say, these are really great conversation points. I'm enjoying this. Thank you, all of you. Yeah. Okay, the question. Urban heat islands are places where the hottest days become even hotter due to the amount of paved surfaces and lack of cooling green spaces with tree cover. Framingham's South Side residents live in the hottest part of the city. Our question to the candidates is, would you support city spending to add green spaces? Another round of applause, folks. Fantastic. Who would like to speak to this one? Mr. Steiner, and then Wesley, and then.
I was going to set it out, but I see I get up to 3, and I hadn't set it up at all. So I think it's rare that we have the opportunity to do that, but we absolutely must. And 2 things I would point out. One would be the Mary Dennison Park is finally being cleaned up. The history of that location is really a disgrace, but it's going to be an absolute gem on the south side. The other thing we should be fighting for is the closing of the prison on the south side. If we could get rid of that and release that space to be green space, commercial, whole residential, all sorts of amazing things.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a proud Southside resident, District 8. I agree that the prison, again, should be used for the space, green space, but I want to also share that throughout my campaign, I've made the effort to go to almost every park in our district and have the residents come. I think there are gems in our community. I've done, I hope to do Farm Pond and Cushing. I've done Mary Dennison. Not Mary Dennison, I've done Anna Murphy. I just did today before the rain came. We did Bates Park and Washaken Pond, and we also did Roosevelt Park. So I believe we should not only have the green space, but also access it and use it. So I've been encouraging the residents to come and join me there. So thank you.
Hello again. I think that we need to deal with our contaminated spaces, and we've talked about that. One of the things that I've been working on, and I believe Keep Framingham Beautiful has just done a spectacular job in focusing us, cleaning our community, but also beautifying our community, is a program to plant 600 trees along Route 135. And we've got some private investors that are coming in. We've got to work through the logistics of it. But the idea is to figure out how, as part of a master plan for that area, we do create a green canopy. And I'm committed to that. Thank you.
Jose Ferreira?
I just want to say that exactly something that he said, keep Framingham beautiful. We need to maintain what we have. We have to try to keep green what is green right now, but I see more buildings and more buildings going up, and the city is just growing so fast, it's not going to be any other spot to put a park for kids. So we have to watch out how we keep giving access to these outside companies to build buildings rather than building parks. So we have to try to have the city buy more property so we can make it into parks.
Thank you. All right, last question in this section. Much of Framingham's building stock consists of older buildings. These buildings often house seniors, renters, or low or moderate income folks who may not have the authority or the money to make upgrades like insulation. Sometimes residents cannot even take advantage of free insulation because they can't afford to fix a leaky roof that's required to be fixed before insulation is installed. Our question to the candidates is, would you support allocating city funds to retrofit older residential buildings to improve residents' health and the energy efficiency of the buildings? Do we have a dream team here or what? Fantastic. Who would like to? Yes, Councilor King.
I would just say, I think it's a very good idea. I think that the devil, as always, is in the details as to how you can use city funds on private properties. I think we have to work through that, but I think there are ways to do it. I think we have other programs we have done that, and I think it's a very good idea because it addresses a very significant need, and I hope that we could do something like that. I think it's an excellent idea.
Thank you. One of the ideas I put forward early were residential tax credits, and I really think that we could use tax credits to help alleviate some of the property tax burden on people who can't necessarily afford it, and they can invest that money back into their home in other ways. So you could use that power that the city council has to encourage people to modernize. Thank you.
Promise my last thing I say tonight. Something strange that I always see is that people in the South Side who has one family home because they don't have the right amount of size of lot to create their family into a two-family home. Now they're going into the Airbnb situation, which is becoming a huge problem in our community. The Airbnb is either Airbnb or room and board. So we have to try to find out how can we help this residents in the South Side of Framingham to be able to create a budget so they can help themselves, because sometimes they do fall behind in their mortgage because the amount of repair they have to do to their homes.
All right. Everyone else is good? Excellent. All right. I'm gonna provide the answer provided by Councilor Liam Bruno. Her response was that I think we do that right now, meaning provide funds to residence buildings with the community development block grants that we give. Mass Save has some great programs. She would like to see us partner with them to see if we could get even more moving forward. All right. Audience, last call on questions. If you could please pass those in. We're running actually ahead of schedule. Bravo. You're right, you're right. I know. Okay, this is the last question provided to the candidates in advance. 20 municipalities, including Boston, Worcester, Cambridge, Somerville, and Watertown, have adopted the specialized stretch code to reduce carbon emissions from buildings. While this opt-in code doesn't ban fossil fuels, it requires that all new buildings be extremely well insulated and be pre-wired to accommodate electric space heating, electric water heating, and electric stoves and clothes dryers. Our question to the candidates is, do you support adopting the specialized opt-in stretch code for new buildings in the city? Why or why not? Every candidate is going to have 90 seconds to answer this question. Again, the time notice will be given at 15 seconds. We'll ask you to come to the podium, assuming that is easily for you. So once again, we're going to start with our at-large candidate, Councilor King. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say I am not in any way an expert on the stretch code and the details of it. My general feeling on this is I understand the concept behind it and the ideas behind it, and I think that there's certainly things that make sense. I would be hesitant at this time to outright adopt it as a city councilor in Framingham, because I think I am concerned about the law of unintended consequences that could happen when something like that is adopted in one municipality. When only sounds great that 20 other municipalities have it, but that also means that 331 others don't have it, and that puts us on a different playing field, and it's going to have a major impact on things like housing costs and even when people go and do repairs to their homes and change things in their homes. So I think we'd have to understand all those details. I'm familiar with a couple of the communities where it has been adopted, and there have been some implementation problems. So though I appreciate what is behind it, to honestly answer the question at this point, I probably would not vote for it. Doesn't mean I would never vote for it, but I think that when it comes to things like building codes, we're often better off when they're adopted like they have been in the past on the state level, and usually are on the state level, so that everybody plays by the same rules. You know, things like, just for not really related, but like smoking in restaurants, they used to be banned by municipalities, and suddenly the state adopted it. When those types of rules go statewide, we're better off. So I think people should continue to encourage the legislature to do so, and maybe at a time will come forth where it does make sense, but at this point, I wouldn't commit to it.
Thank you. And now we're going to turn to Sean Silk, again running for the contested District 2 seat.
Thank you again for this evening and for giving me the opportunity to answer your questions. I would not be in favor of adopting it right now. I did have to learn a lot about it after reading this question, and I was in sales for a hot second, and one of the things they tell you to do is give people a low, middle, and high option, because they'll usually go with the middle option, and that's usually the one that people want. And I think right now we have adopted the code that was the middle choice. I would be concerned a little bit about the economic use of money, as far as if we use a stretch code that raises prices and makes housing less affordable in the city, if that is actually benefiting the residents, if they're using all of the options they now have. You do have to build towards the future, but I do think we're accomplishing that by using the middle option code. And I also just feel that, sometimes the state is testing some of the options out in the more advanced code, and then as they work, they're moving it backward, because they are revamping the codes every few years to the middle option. So you're getting what actually works in the middle code, as opposed to some things that may or may not work. So, my answer ultimately would be no right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to Brandon Ward, also running for the contested District 2 seat.
Thank you. So I think there have been some good points made here, and I appreciated Councillor King's remarks on not wanting to put Framingham at a disadvantage and the benefits of potentially having state action to create a level playing field. With that said, I think I would be leaning towards accepting the stretch and the opt-in stretch codes. I think it's really important to keep Massachusetts on path to being net zero by 2050. I think there are many similar cities to Framingham, Worcester, Watertown, Somerville, that have made this step. And I think there is a transition period. So even if we voted this into effect in January or February, early 2024, it would probably not take effect till January 2025. And so I think there is some runway here for us to take action and work to do it in a way that doesn't disincentivize developers to still be a part of our community, but also putting sustainability, climate change, environmental protection at the forefront for what Framingham hopes to do. So, thank you.
Thank you. And now to Councillor Steiner, running uncontested for the District 3 seat.
Thank you. That's a big yes from me. I think that if the state was developing it now, I think it would actually be going a lot further, because every year the crisis is getting worse. And so I think the specialized stretch code is the least that every community should be doing. Do I want the state of Massachusetts to adopt it? Yes. Are they going to anytime soon? Unfortunately, probably not. We can push, we can nudge, but we can't count on that. When I think back to town meeting and two of the most controversial issues I remember, one of them was banning plastic bags in Framingham. And it was, oh no, all of our supermarkets will be destroyed. That hasn't happened. There's a new supermarket going up in Chopper's Road right now. The only difference I see, other than people bringing reusable bags, is the fact that every tree doesn't have a plastic bag waving in it. At that time, it was controversial. So I see the specialized stretch code in the same way. The other comment I would make is around affordability. You know, what can we afford? Can we afford this? The vast majority of the construction in Framingham that this code would apply to are these ginormous apartment complexes that are charging $3,000 a month or $1 million for a 55-plus condo. Those developers can afford it. What people can't afford is an environment that is a disaster, is a lack of clean water, is a lack of clean air. And that's the kind of affordability that really concerns me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I have to concur with Councilor King. At the present time, I wouldn't vote for it. We've had our COO, Mike Tassino, former building commissioner, tell us the pros and the cons. If the state adopts it, so be it. The city of Framingham, you know, Councilor Snyder talks about the $1 million homes, but the single-family home, you build a duplex in Framingham, and first-time home buyer buys a half a duplex for $599. That stretch code's going to apply there too. I supported the adoption of the last stretch code. It was very controversial when we had town meeting. It works. Homes are much more energy efficient that are built today. This affects all housing, this stretch code. It'll affect the new affordable housing down off of Beaver Street that we're redoing for the Framingham Housing Authority. It would affect all housing. So I'm all about an equal playing field. If the state adopts it, 351 cities and towns have to follow it, so be it. But for now, Mr. Silk made a good comment. It's the middle of the road right now. We do more than some communities. We're doing less than those other communities that opted in. But I see this from both sides because my living is real estate property management and doing things like that. So this needs to really be looked at. And Framingham, we want to keep Framingham open for business. We have to do that. We have to protect our environment. But I'll give you a scenario that's not a great scenario that you won't want to hear. But when you see some new construction built in Framingham, you have the fan in the bathroom on the second floor. The house is so tight with insulation, the fan runs 24 hours a day to keep the air moving. You have homeowners, once they get their certificate of occupancy, disconnect that fan. So that's not the answer either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Malak?
I think that I would support moving towards a stretch code, but more so we are in the process of evaluating it. I sit on the City Council subcommittee or Environmental and Sustainability subcommittee along with Councilor Liam Bruno and Councilor Alexander. And at our June meeting, we actually talked about this stretch code. And the conclusion of that was that our building inspector and our COO, as was mentioned, who was our former building inspector here, agreed that they were going to host a forum. I don't know that that was the word that we used, but that they were going to convene a group, and we agreed actually 2 times, once during day hours, once during evening hours, for having that conversation and finding out what people are thinking, specifically what people are concerned about. So I know the question is, what do I support it? But I'll say that if you support this stretch code, I would encourage you to reach out to the environmental subcommittee and find out what the status is of that report back from the building inspector.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm learning a little bit about the stretch code too, but I think we need to look at it closely. I'm not sure if I'll support it. One of my main concerns, though, for my district is affordable housing. We have a lot of apartments downtown, and in my area, that's like $3,000 for a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom. So that's one of my concerns. So I'll maybe learn more from other cities what they're doing.
The simple, easy answer is yes. But you're not honest if you don't put a giant asterisk next to it that you've got to figure out how to make this work. There are 29,000 housing units in Framingham. This doesn't apply to those units. We're talking about putting something in place that applies to a handful of new units. This is, to me, very frustrating because we get ourselves wrapped into motion with no movement. And we make ourselves feel really good. We did something for the environment, and we're protecting water and earth and everything else. This is going to have zero impact on us reaching our 2030 goal. So do I support this? Yes, in concept. I lean towards supporting it, Maura Healey has asked her administration to finish their review in the spring of this year. We don't even have a finalized version of the stretch code today to adopt. It's a draft version of something that we're adopting. We need to focus our energy on a strategic master plan that comprehensively looks at what we need to do in our community. We need charging stations. We need to clean up our contaminated sites. We need solar panels on our buildings. We need to focus on things that get us to net zero by 2030. The stretch code is not amongst that. Is it a good idea? Yes. Do I support the idea? Yes. But let's focus our energy on things that are meaningfully going to get us to 2030.
Thank you.
Okay, I am the vice chair of the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee for the City Council, and we did discuss this issue. And the real problem a lot of people had with it was that they thought it would deter development, and developers wouldn't want to build in Framingham. Well, we've got a lot of buildings in Framingham already, and I think that we do have to look at it carefully, right? But again, if we want it, then we look at it to see how we can make it work, right? What can we do? We can bring them to the table, developers and everyone else, and see what would the problems be with it, and then advocate. Now, if we need to advocate at the state level, then let's advocate at the state level. And let's put energy into making it work. How can we make it work for Framingham? Because it could help. Yes, it can help us get closer to, net zero, right? But if it's done correctly, and that, I think we're all teetering on the border of saying that, but right now but if you dismiss it out of hand, then you never get there. You never go in that direction at all. So if we say it's a good idea, let's look in that direction and let's find solutions.
Thank you.
Hi. So I'm looking around and trying to figure out how many of us are going to be here 60, 70 years from now. If you talk about money, yes, about 3 people. You, and Mary Kay, and that gentleman. So we have to think about what are we debating here. We're debating the future of this planet. We're debating their grandkids' future, not ours. And we're talking about homes that are not even ours. If you have your home now, this doesn't apply to you. It's what Stefanini just mentioned. This is for people who are going to build their home. I mentioned to Larry a couple days ago that I'm planning to build a home next year. And I said, I want to go green. I want to see what it's like to live with solar panel, with well water. I want to be able to do all these things. But we're not making decisions for us. We're making decisions for the future. So we have to be very careful. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. So a lot of great issues have been raised by the candidates. I want to take just a minute to fill you in on a couple places you can find more information. We heard talk about strategic plans. We heard talk about building codes. We had, anyway, if you want to get up to date on the latest, again, Energize Framingham has a monthly newsletter where we cover what's going on. We have had some great progress in Framingham, and I applaud the City Council for approving those easements, those budget allocations, whatever, and moving forward with our geothermal district, first in the nation. So we have a lot of opportunity in our community, and we just want to keep this progress moving and accelerating. And I am looking for my audience questions. I think they're walking in the door. Time out, he says. Wow, ahead of schedule. Let's see. It's a risk. We went through a whole list of questions that we wanted to ask. That did not make the cut. One of those is related to EV charging. Great question. So how to formulate that as a question? Do we have them coming up? Saved by the Bell. Yes. 1 minute, please. Is there anything on EV charging?
You guys are very attentive, and most of your questions went right to the point of the questions that have already been asked, which is why there's a little bit of hesitation here.
Are there any EV charging?
Pardon me?
EV charging?
Nope.
No. All right. All right. Let's have a question about EV charging stations. 60 seconds each. All right. So what do you think we need to do to get more of them here in Framingham? Let's go in reverse order, starting with Mr. Ferreira.
I just want to say about, say 10, 15 years ago, I was trying, because I have a home cleaning business, I was trying to go electric with my cars, and the guy at the dealer said to me something interesting. He said, if you're going to buy this car to save money and gas, don't buy it. You only buying this car to save the environment. And that always stayed with me. So we have to try to go maybe more electric now.
Hang on. 60 seconds. We going with that? Thank you.
Great. I thought I got, but anyways, I don't know much on the subject because I stay gas. I know that some states around the United States are trying to be all electric by 2030. I think it was California that I read. I just think that this is the way to go. We have to get away from fossil fuels at all costs. Thank you.
Okay, so we have an EV charging station on Torrally Terrace in District 9. That is wonderful. More people need to know about it, but someone just asked me, how far is it? Can I walk from the dollar store there to charge, I'm going to charge it and leave it and go? And I said yes. I was happy to say yes. But we do need more cars, electric cars. We need more advertising, more encouragement to people to buy electric cars. And if they have the cars, they're going to want the charging stations. But having one where it is now, I think will encourage more people to look into it. So I think it's a great thing.
Thank you.
I drive an electric vehicle. We need to build infrastructure for electric vehicles. You can't, I talk to people who are looking to buy vehicles. Without the infrastructure, there isn't the incentive. We need to put charging stations everywhere. We're way behind everybody else. There's federal and state money available to us. The manufacturers are building, I think we're sitting on 5 free charging stations in Framingham that General Motors is paying for. The money is there. We just need to get the will and get beyond sort of the where and how and what to put them. Without the infrastructure, we're not going to see the electric cars. And so the infrastructure becomes very, very important to us. In addition to that, we need to think about ways to reduce our cars. We talked about car sharing programs. You look back in the 70s, there were some sophisticated programs. We need to look at software and other things that help neighbors commute with neighbors. There are a bunch of communities that do this very successfully. Framingham could adopt its own program and help its neighbors figure out how to commute together.
I do support EV charging stations, and I know we have some at shop as well, but to be honest, a lot of us can't afford electric cars. I'd love to be able to have an electric car myself to do this. So we have to figure out how we incentivize people to be able to afford the cars in the first place. So even if you build the infrastructure and people can't afford the cars, then it's kind of a waste of time. So we have to figure out what orders. They put in the cart before the horse, okay?
Yes, I support increased EV opportunities in building out in Framingham. We're putting in a parking garage in between City Hall and the police station on that area there, and I look forward to seeing what EV options, the extent of them, when that gets built.
I'm going to sit on this one. I thank you and I apologize, but we need more EV stations. I'm looking. My daughter's getting a new car, so we're looking at Jeeps, and they've got hybrid Jeeps. They've got different kinds of Jeeps. But when we built our new home in Framingham, we've got it ready for 2 charging stations because that's what the world is coming to. So we built a new house in 2019, and we were proactive. But we need charging stations to make it convenient for people. You know, you don't want to take your car to Shoppers World, have to charge your car at Shoppers World. We need them around town. We need them in the libraries. We need them in our municipal buildings. And Councilor Malik said it best. We're going to build a new parking garage in between the two, the Memorial Building and the police station. Hopefully, in the city's wisdom, it'll be a 6-story parking garage because that's what's needed to alleviate all the problems. Because we're going to be getting a new courthouse in downtown Framingham. For the folks that don't know that, the Danforth Building will be a new regional court system. It's years out, but we're going to have to accommodate all those vehicles and those people coming to do business in Framingham. But that's a huge success thanks to the Senate President and the leadership in the State House. Thank you.
You know, I also think we need more EV charging stations. I've never quite understood why we don't have we have so few. We have that one over at Farm Pond, kind of lonely, I guess, if you have kids playing over there. It helps for the Little League, but I'm not sure why we don't. I thought we've actually appropriated for some more, and I haven't seen them. So I do agree with that. I also think that as a city, we should look more and more towards having an electric fleet. I don't necessarily say as part of our, I think there's 2 things we can do. I think a lot of our fleet can be made electric. I think it's almost a perfect situation because they use them during the day, they can charge them at night and use them during the day, and you know it will work out very well. So I think that's one thing we should do. I'm not sure if for public safety vehicles we should do that as quickly, but I think for public safety vehicles, we should try to limit the number of vehicles we have. The fleet at the police department has grown unbelievably over the last 15 to 20 years, where we have like 75 cars and like 125 cops. So I think if we can limit the use of regular gas vehicles and add electric vehicles, I think that would be a good step in the right direction.
I mean, there's been a lot of good stuff said already. One thing I would add is the specialized stretch energy code is a good way to create more charging stations because it mandates that these big apartment complexes have them, which a lot of them do not. So hopefully that is adopted statewide. The other thing, I mean, it definitely hits home. I have a 16-year-old who's starting to angle for a car, and the cost of the car actually is reasonable because of federal incentives. But putting in that charging station in the garage these days is so expensive. We need to, and I know there's grants available for businesses. We need to start creating those homeowner grants to help folks put those electric charging stations in there. Thank you.
So a lot of people have already talked, so it's tough to say something new and original. But I think EV charging stations are a huge priority. They should be on all municipal lots and a part of all new municipal projects. Our schools, as we're building new schools, should 100% have them. I think there's a lot of opportunity to find private dollars to do this work. And I didn't know about the GM dollars, but requiring new development, requiring businesses coming to Framingham to make this a part of their proposals when they go before the planning board is a no-brainer to me and something that we should be doing a lot more of. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'm going to just pretty much echo what everybody else said. I do think we need to have more charging stations in Framingham. The location, I would be looking at putting them where people actually live, so it's convenient for them, because I think it's nice to have them in Shoppers World, but you really need them near residences, as we have more apartment buildings and more duplexes, more multifamily homes. We really need to find a way to make charging stations available where people are at night, because that's the easiest way to get it done. I know that the state really authorized a cord cover for cars so that they could drive over the cords without impeding sidewalks or anything like that. So simply investing in something small like that might make a big difference for people and their ability to buy a electric vehicle. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you all. I'm going to take moderator's liberty here and refer anyone who's interested in an electric vehicle to check out the resources on energizeframingham.org. You've heard about some incentives, some mass save programs for chargers are out there. So if people are interested, take a look at energizeframingham.org. All right, on to our next question. How do you intend to focus on engaging with environmental justice populations while pursuing any climate actions in the city, as those communities are most likely to be disproportionately affected by climate change? Do we want to have a, yeah?
The south side of Framingham, you heard Council Stefanini and other councils bring it up. You know, my first 2 years on the city council, we had an environmental subcommittee. I think they met 3 times, okay, if they met 3 or 4 times. You know, in my wisdom, I was allowed to appoint folks to the different committees, and I truly believe that Council Liam Bruno and the committee we put together for the environmental committee has done a great job with Sean Lutz. You know, Mary Dennison, it's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. But we've negotiated with Dennison Manufacturing. They're going to pay 82% of the cleanup, 82%, south side. 350 Irving Street, another disaster, okay? When I was on the zoning board, we limited the permits for the businesses there. It was Landscape Depot. Maybe people are more familiar with Landscape Depot than where 350 Irving is. And we had kept allowing them to have permits and operate because Eversource stepped up and started to clean it. And General Chemical, again, Senate President, Dennis Giambetti, former city councilor, they've advocated. Thank God for the Senate President in our districts from Ashland that can get us the money, because General Chemical, we got tens of millions of dollars, or that'd still be a disaster. So thank God we've got the people we have in the State House at the present time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could just hand it off. We're all answering this, right?
Yes.
Okay. So we have started doing this work in coordination. Sean Lutz, our sustainability coordinator, has been working with NADIC. We have a climate liaisons group that has been working there, a multilingual group that has started to do this work in terms of understanding what residents' concerns are and how they're feeling they will be impacted by climate change. So my understanding, I could be wrong, is that some of those climate liaisons are still staying on and working with the city. So that's the first thing. And then also looking at our facilities department and getting more support for our facilities department to be doing that outreach. We have one person, he's a bit of a one-man show, Sean Luz. I think that he needs help from the city.
Thank you.
Everybody mentioned Sean Lutz. I already mentioned him first. Remember that. I'm going to take credit. He's doing a fantastic job, but I think, like Leo Romanek said, he needs more support. One of the things I think we can do is to not only say what we want to do, but to reach out to the residents, have some community meetings, have stuff in multi-language, and really make a real good effort, even figure out how people's work schedules. In the south side, a lot of people work second shift, third shift. So have multiple times people can meet, so that, and with translators at all times, so that families are able to actually have the input, not just the counselors, because that's who we represent. Thank you.
Community engagement is the most important part of what we do. That's being a representative for a neighborhood, a group, understanding what's going on. Every single year, I take and I do a survey and I send it out, and I'm fortunate enough to get 400 or 500 responses back to that. I do it in multiple languages, give people an opportunity to participate. I bring the environment into every single conversation I do, and I do lots of conversations with lots of groups. I proactively reach out, as Amy and Larry and others know. I don't wait for you to call me, I call you, which you may or may not like. But this is an important issue. And to me, the most important thing we can do is listen to the residents of our community and our neighborhood. Because the best ideas I've had when I spent 10 years 5 terms in the legislature and as a counselor, come from voters. Listening to voters is what it's all about, and how we in turn use our skills and our energy to make those practice.
So I want to say that I am proud to say that I live in the environmental justice district, or the environmentally injustified district. But I live in District 9. I am the city councilor. I've lived in District 9 for 36 years or more, right? So I represent the people, but I'm one of them. So I know the challenges we have. And during COVID, one of the things that so many mothers and parents said was that they wish there was more green space, like they wish their child could go ride their bike outside and things like that during that time period, not be cooped up. But with the Mary Dennison project, it was at a standstill. People have been working on it for a long time. But in terms of the money, Mary Dennison, the Dennison company, providing more of the money. That was like a little bit of a loggerhead for a while, right? But I called Mass DEP and talked to them, researched whatever, had them come. They came to the environmental subcommittee and found out that that was it. Who's gonna pay more money? And it was just, and then we kept falling behind on regulations, right? So we needed a politician. I called the mayor and we said, make them pay more. And there you go.
Thank you. Yeah.
It took a while to get there.
Yes, absolutely. So the question is, how do you intend to focus on engaging with environmental justice populations while pursuing any climate actions in the city, as these communities are most likely to be disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change?
Well, climate change will only affect those that are going to be here to see it. So we need to start
Jose, can you use the mic?
Oh, sorry. So we need to start working in our kids. I think that the key to this is to teach the kids about the climate change. We need to teach our kids what it's like, what it's going to be like for them 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, because we know how to recycle. It's our kids the problem. And I think that's what we have to target. Our vision is to see and say, okay, we cannot keep fixing the roads for the kids, but fix the kids for the road. So we have to teach our kids how to take care of the environment, not us, because we know how to recycle. Thank you.
Thank you. As District 2 City Councilor, my focus will be on the families in District 2. And there are a lot of families who would be considered in this category. And from my personal experience, one of the ways I try and instill a love of the environment and love of nature into my own children is just being able to get out into green space and enjoy it. So I take my kids out on trails all the time and take them walking in woods and really try and build that appreciation for what we have and how much nature means to just a successful, happy life. So I think having options nearby, it's the cheapest way to spend a day is just go for a walk in the woods with your kids, and everybody can have a lot of fun. So making sure that Framingham has those green spaces available to families to use and to build the appreciation, I think is very important. And other than that, reaching out and learning, how to help them by them telling me what the best way to do is how I see it. Thank you.
So I would say that the easiest way to bring others into the conversation is not to think that we, the City Council, City Hall, Framingham city government is the ones that have to do that work. There are already lots of really engaged citizens throughout our community, and especially on the south side. There are lots of organizations that already have those relationships established. I'm thinking of Riyad Shah, who's the executive director of Downtown Framingham, Inc., where I serve on the board. I'm thinking of Kevin Lopez, who is the executive director of Hoops and Homework, where I'm a fundraiser. These kind of organizations already have these relationships. They're the ones that should be leading these conversations. And if we empower them, if we give them the tools and the support to do that, then we get the outcome that we want. So thank you.
First thing we have to do is make sure we continue to have these centers where people gather all around the city, so that we're not, focused just on our own district. So when I think about enhanced, reinvigorated Mary Dennison Park, when I think about our community center downtown, that's going to bring people together. I also think about the work that the city's done to try and make sure that we're doing more in terms of translation and making sure our communications go in multiple formats. People have mentioned Sean Luz, but that creation of that position and the hiring of Sean is so critical, and we need to continue to give him the resources he needs so he wants to stay in Framingham. So if you see him, please thank him for his work, and I continue to ask him, what do you need? What can we be doing better to support your work? The last thing I would mention is that representation matters, so we need to continue to elect people like Tracy Bryant in the community. We need to continue to demand of the mayor that he appoints people to our various boards who represent all of Framingham, not just geographically by district, but in all different walks of life. Thank you.
I'm not sure I can add a whole lot more to most of the things that have been said, but I do think it's important whenever you're in government in a position like we're in, that you take the opportunity to make sure you get the proper feedback from people, especially from people who may be adversely impacted or more impacted by issues than other people. I think overall our government is set up to do that. Sometimes we need more participation. We have participation in some areas, not in other areas. I hope we can continue to fill in those areas that we don't. I think groups like this are a great place, I know, for me to learn, to hear, understand what people are thinking about and what's important to people. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight to be here, and I thank everyone for their feedback.
Thank you, candidates. It is 8:29, so I'm going to wrap us up. Just so everyone is aware, the city is running an engagement program on developing a climate action plan. They are looking for input to that plan so we can develop something that fits our community. There has been, the first session I know was held with translation available in Spanish and Portuguese. It was at a 7 p.m. meeting time, but look for that information on the city website, the Climate Action Plan, just so everyone's aware of that. With that, I want to give a final huge round of applause to our candidates for their participation tonight. Thank you all so much for your service to Framingham. Please join Energize Framingham online, energizeframingham.org, on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks to everyone here for coming out on this rainy night. Thanks for people that are live online with us. And thank you for showing us that, demonstrating that climate matters. Once again, the event was recorded and will be available online. That is it for tonight. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.